In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to use the shimmer Photoshop action, and what the action will do is transform your photo and give it this type of effect. So a few more examples I got here, from this to this. Okay, so let me just close these down and start off with our photo. Now one thing you want to check when you first open up your photo is that your layer is set as the background. So you can see my layer panel here, it should look like that. And if it doesn't, if you open up a photo and it's called something else, just go to Layer, New, Background from Layer, and it's set as the background. Next, you just want to make sure that you're in RGB color mode and 8 bits of channel. And lastly, just go back into your layer panel and go to the top right hand corner icon here and just select panel options and just make sure that add copy to copied layers and groups is selected. Alright, so with that done, let's now load up our action. So if we go to the window menu, select actions and just hit this top icon here and go to load actions. Select the shimmer.atn file and it appears here. So there's just one step involved in making this action work. We need to create a new layer and we need to call it brush. It must be all lowercase, otherwise the action won't work. Hit OK. Now with the brush layer selected, hit B on the keyboard to get your brush out, and you can pick any color, doesn't matter. And what you want to do, you want to start brushing over your photo where you want it to remain in focus after the action's finished. So I want the face to be in focus, and you don't need to be too accurate with where you brush, because we're going to adjust what remains in focus or out of focus after the action's finished as well. So I'll just do this reasonably quick. Raise that a little bit. Okay, so that's all set up and ready to go. That's all that's involved to make this action work. So what I'm going to do now is just click play on the action, and then I'm going to fast forward the video because the action runs between 3 and 5 minutes. It really depends on the size of your photo. If you're using photos over, say, 3,000 pixels high or wide, it's probably going to take around the 5-minute mark. So anything under that should be around 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll just fast forward the video and then we'll talk about all the ways we can customize the design. So the action's finished and you can see our result here. So now let's minimize the actions panel here, and we'll go into the layer panel, and the first thing you'll probably want to do is collapse all these folders, and a quick way to do that is if you hold down Control and Alt on a PC, Command Option on a Mac, and with the shimmer folder selected, just click on that arrow and it will quickly collapse all the folders. Alright, so what we'll do, we'll start off in the adjustments layer and just talk about what's in here. So I've just left the brush layer here. If you wanted to run the action again, just drag this one to the top, delete the other folders, and you're ready to go. Now one thing to note is that even if you use the same brushed area and you run the action again, you're going to get a completely different result. Every time you run the action, you're going to get a unique result. So if you're not happy with what comes out first, run the action again if you want. Alright, so turn that one off. Now the folder below, I've set up 10 different color variations, and by default color number 1 is turned on, so you can see that there. And so what you could do is just go down the line here, flick them on and off, and just get a feel for which one could work with your photo. And what I also like to do is combine them. So each one of these layers, their opacity is set to 100, and what I like to do is I like to click on this word opacity, drag to the left, bring it to 0, and slowly drag it to the right to bring the opacity up. And then I can click down the line here and say, and think which one could also look good with a bit of opacity. maybe this one, but not 100%. So I'll drag this back to 0, and I'll just bring it up a little bit. Now you can do that with all these layers and sort of build a color combination that works for your photo. Alright, so I'll just turn those off, and going on down, add contrast. By default it's turned off. You can turn that one on, and again use the opacity slider here and play around with that. Add saturation. By default, if you double click on that, I've added a bit of saturation to the overall image. You can use this slide here to increase that, or if you wanted to, you could bring this back and use this drop down menu and target particular colors. So I could target the yellows and boost that. Alright, so I'll just bring that back to here. So that's the adjustments folder. So going on down, we have the shimmer folder, and this houses all the effects. You can see that there. Now the first thing you'll notice on the shimmer folder, there's a folder mask. Now the way this works is that if you want to fine tune what parts of your photo are nice and clear, you can select this folder mask, hit B to get your brush, and select a black brush, and anywhere you brush will basically remove the shimmer effect. So if I just brush over this photo, you can see that it's falling down onto our background layer here. So if you really wanted to fine tune, say, the area that we initially brushed around the hair here, I can just use a small brush and get right amongst it here and brush back some of those details that you might want to bring in, just like that. Okay, so just keep that one in mind. So going inside, there's a few folders here. Now the top one, photo, if I turn that one, I'll zoom out a bit, if I turn that one on and off, you can see that that's the area that we brushed that we wanted to keep in focus. So this folder has that layer in there. Inside the folder is also this one called photo sharpening. If I turn that one on and off, you can see it just helps the photo pop a little more. And so with this layer, with this folder, what I like to do is when the action's finished, I'll flick this one on and off, and I'll take a look where these effects could look good cut further into the subject. So for example, I might want to brush in some of the effects around the headphones. So what I'll do, I'll select the folder mask, I'll select a black brush. What I can do, I can just start brushing into that mask to reveal where else I want the effects to appear. So you can really fine tune all that. And just flip it to white if you want to bring it back. Okay, so that's the photo folder. Now going on down, we have the foreground parts. So inside this folder we have a lot of different layers, and these ones, you can just select them, you can move them around just like that. You can rotate them, Control T, swivel them around, you can scale them if you want. And what I also like to do is I quickly go down this line and say I'll select A3, and what I'll do, I'll hold down Alt on the keyboard, Alt, click and drag down, it'll quickly duplicate the layer. But what that does, it can, say for example, you look at the top here, it'll quickly boost the brightness of some of those parts, and you can keep duplicating those layers if you want. So A6, I'll just duplicate it, that might be too strong. A9, A12, or you could just simply duplicate layers and move them around to make the design much more detailed. If you want to add a lot more sparkles, you could do it that way. Okay, so that's that folder. Now background parts, if I turn that one on and off, so they're more of the chunkier sparkles that are blurred right out in the background. So if you go inside this folder, there's just a bunch here that you can play around with, move them around. So as you can see, there's a ton of flexibility over the placement of all these sparkles, and yeah. So just make sure you jump inside these folders and just move some of them around and get something that you're happy with. So that's the background parts folder. Now this layer here is quite important. So by default it's the layer opacity is set to 30%. Now if I drag this to 0, you notice that it blows out in some areas. This is basically to control the appearance of the sparkles if you're using a white or a black background. So if your photo has quite a bright, or let's just say pure white background, you can use this opacity handle to basically tint your photo, the background of your photo, this black color, which will bring in a lot more detail than the sparkles. So you can see if I bring this to 0 around the head here, you can see it's all blown out, but watch as I drag the opacity to the right, it brings back a lot of details in those sparkles. So just use this one to experiment with your photo. And you can also double click on this box here and change the color of that as well, so you can use it as a overall tint as well. So you can change the opacity to add a bit of blue. See that to that color. I'll just tint that. Turn the opacity down. Okay, so the two layers below, background blur 1 and 2, by default they're all turned on, and what you want to do with this is if you turn this one off, you can see that the background becomes a little bit more clearer. If you turn this one off, you notice that all the blur is gone. So you can control with these two layers just how much blur you want. So if you just want a little bit, turn number 1 off, and if you want a lot, turn number 1 on. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Hope you have fun using the action, and just contact me if you are having any troubles with it. Okay, thanks.